Hey, have you ever wondered what it takes to get a light show to work? I get asked all the time, what does it take? Where do you get stuff from? How much does it cost? So I thought I would make a video here just to kind of show you behind the scenes of what it takes for me to put this together, where I got things, and hopefully kind of what things cost, or just to kind of give you a general idea. So feel free to watch this. If you have any questions, reach out and let me know, and I'll see what I can do to get you an answer. Now, I'm definitely not an expert. Since this is my first year doing this, there's still a lot that I have left to learn. But watching YouTube the last year or so has really helped me put all this together this year. And now everything may not be done the correct way or even the easiest way. So let's pull the curtain back and see what we have behind it. I have 7,121 pixels in the show. The whole show's run off 20% brightness. Everything is spaced on 2-inch spacing. I don't have any power injection. I'm running a Falcon F16v4, a Kulp 32, and one differential receiver. All of the pixels in my show are 12 volt. There's no 5 volt. Everything is X-Connect, and all the pixels themselves I got from Gilbert Engineering. I usually buy from them because you can get pixels in 5, 8, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, and 100, I believe. So I don't have to do any kind of splicing or soldering. I can get most numbered configurations out of these pixel props using a combination of 5s and 8s. So this is where it all starts. I have an Ethernet cable coming down from the main router of my home network that feeds this TP-Link AX55 wireless router. I had to do this to separate the light show from my home network because I was having lag issues from all the data being pushed through it. So separating the network and having a standalone network for your light show, it can be kind of complicated, but it was definitely a game changer for me as far as performance and not having any issues afterwards. And then this feeds my Raspberry Pi 4 that I have the FPP installed on so that I can upload all my X-Lights sequences, all the songs, everything, upload that to it. I can control the show schedule from there. I can update it, change it, pause it, do whatever I need all from this. And I don't have to really worry about it. It runs the whole show and there's no need for me to really mess with it unless I need to. And then the audio from that comes out, it goes through a sound blaster. I got the sound blaster off of Amazon for around $17 or $20. And then that feeds into this radio transmitter, a CZE-05B. I got that off of Amazon for probably around $100. I have that set to low range frequency. So when I transmit, I can get about 6 houses away or so in my neighborhood before I lose my signal, which is plenty for the light show. Since if you can't see the show, there's really no point in listening to the music. So I have this wireless router, the Raspberry Pi, and the radio transmitter all plugged in to this monster surge protector that I have mounted on the side of this box that I built. My plan is actually to use this as my Milwaukee battery charging station in the off season. But since September, when I started the Halloween show, this router, the transmitter, and the Raspberry Pi, they haven't turned off. I just leave them running 24/7. And then I have a timer here that I control with my phone that has 2 cords plugged into it. One of these goes to my Tune To sign. The other one goes to the Santa and the reindeer that I made. And I'll show you where those go here in just a second. And then also coming out of this router, other than just going to the Raspberry Pi, I've got an Ethernet cable going to each of the controllers. So one of these will go to the Falcon F16v4 and the other one will go to the Kulp 32. So I will show you those in just a second as well. So the power cords for the Tune 2 sign and my Reindeer come out of the garage. And then I've got them going through one of these 2-channel traffic speed bumps. I got these off of Amazon as a 3-pack for like $40, and they're rubber and they're pretty good. They're pretty good quality. I'm pretty happy with those. They were a lot more stout than I was expecting them to be. But that comes down. And I've got Tune 2 sign here. It's nothing fancy. Just ordered it off of one of those online print stores. Then I got zip tied to my mailbox. Put a couple grommets on the corners. Just zip tied it to a piece of rebar. And then my Reindeer and my Santa, I made that out of 1/2-inch plywood a couple of years ago. Painted it white. I've just got your normal 120 volt Christmas lights behind that. But it's supposed to kind of give a silhouette look, which it does. It would look better up against the wall, but the thing's 19 feet long and takes up way too much room in my front yard, so I'm probably going to have to get rid of that. Maybe sell it this year and replace it with something else with pixels next year. I got the templates for those off of a lady on Etsy, I believe. But it's just got your normal 120 volt lights stapled on the back with stainless steel staples. And then I have rope light from Santa's arms that go around all the reindeers, just to kind of give them some reins. It's hard to keep it weather tight. I've got some electrical tape kind of taped around this 3-prong plug, and like I've got these single connection waterproof pieces around everything, but a lot of this stuff, it's just hard to weatherproof it. And I have had a couple situations where it rained a lot this year and it tripped the breaker. So that's another reason I think I'm going to get rid of this. Plus all these white lights are kind of bright and it does drown out my show a little bit, so I want to get rid of that. But as far as single connection weatherproofing goes, these things work great. I got them at Home Depot for a few dollars. I've got those on every plug out here that I can put them on. They just don't make them for 3-way prongs that I've found. Okay, so from the wireless router that's just for the light show, I have an Ethernet cable going down back behind my tool chest. Just kind of goes along the wall and lays on the ground outside the garage door. And it follows along here along with the other Ethernet cable and some pixel wire to another one of these speed bumps. And that's where it all hits my first controller. This is a Falcon F16v4. I've got two 350 watt power supplies in it. Each power supply feeds 8 ports of the 16 total ports. This particular box I bought from Wired Watts, already pre-built. It was the first controller box I had and I didn't want to mess with building one myself. So I went with something that they had built and was ready to go just to get me started. I believe it only came with one power supply, so I did end up adding another power supply to this so that I could run more pixels off of it. But this is my main controller to the show. The Ethernet comes into it. I could run a couple differential receivers off of this if I wanted to, which I probably will. next year at least one up to the roof so I can control that stuff up there without having those 20-foot extensions. But right now I didn't really have to do that with what I had. I've just got this mounted to the back side of one of the columns on my porch. I haven't decided if I'm going to leave this up all year or if I'm going to take it down yet, but it's just a couple screws holding it on, so I don't know. I may just take it down, but we'll see. So like I said, there's 16 ports on this. Right now I'm using all of them but one. They all have a few hundred pixels at most on them. I have way more ports than I need right now, so I didn't see a point in putting everything on one or two ports and power injecting when I had plenty of extra ports to work with to avoid that. The F16v4 and my Kulp are both plugged in to these timers. They're nothing fancy, they're just analog, set a time on, set a time off, and then sometimes I'll run it in the morning for a few hours, but they've worked great so far. I haven't had any trouble with them. The only thing that sucks is I can't turn the show on and off if I'm not home from my phone, so I may have to upgrade those. Okay, so going from the F16v4 controller, I have 3 pillars. Each of them have these 200 pixel 1 foot by 8 foot Boscoyo Utilimesh matrices on them. I just have them fed off of one port because I've got plenty of ports right now, so there's no need to split them up or try to put multiple on one port and power inject. To mount these to the frames, I've just got a couple of these Holiday Coro clips screwed in at the bottom and a couple at the top. And I made these frames out of 1/2-inch PVC. I just made a frame around the Utilimesh, and then I offset it a little bit at the top and the bottom to give room for the back side of the pixels. And then they just clip right on there. I had to zip tie these temporarily this year because I hadn't actually glued or any of this conduit together yet. I just have it dry fitted just to kind of see how it would work out, and I'm pretty happy with it. They don't really move much. I haven't decided yet if I want to replace it with 1/2-inch steel EMT, but they serve their purpose. I mean, there's a little bit of play in them, but nothing too crazy. All right, on the next port out of that controller, we go around to our dining room window. There's 138 pixels on that. Like other windows, I tried to use the magnets and glue them to those clips. That didn't work out, so I had to put a clip on each side on the vertical end just to kind of keep it in the window. But for the most part, it's a snug fit, so it doesn't really move anywhere as long as I got those clips just keeping it in place. It's also built with 1/2-inch PVC conduit on the 10mm Boscoyo strip that comes in 4-foot sections. And I believe those 4-foot sections are like $3 a piece. And I've got quite a few of them. And they just zip tie every 4, 5, 6 inches or so. Zip ties will be your friend in this hobby. Then from there, that feeds down. I think I've got a 20-foot extension or so on that. It feeds along to this left edge of my garage door. There's 48 pixels on that. For this one, I just stuck a 1/2-inch PVC coupling on top of the brick there and glued it down so that slides right in. And then at the top, the strip is just zip tied to some clamps on the edge of my gutter. And that's the only thing that's been holding that in place since the start of September. And I've had no issues with that. Okay, so from there, I'm feeding this Boscoyo Chroma Flake. It's a 48 pixel flake. And then there's a pretty long extension on that, probably 15 feet of extension or so. And I'm feeding another Boscoyo Chroma Flake, 48 pixels. Those are roughly $15 a piece for the prop, and then you have to buy the pixels. And then those are held in with those same vinyl siding clips that I got off of Amazon that I was showing on a previous prop. That they just slide up in there. Slide them up into a seam of your siding. And the pixel props just hang right off of them. I've been pretty happy with those. Then the next thing coming off of that controller is this frame around my garage. There's 178 pixels on that. And it's also built on 1/2" PVC. And like everything else, I've got some of these clips that are screwed in. And the strips just slip right into that. And they hold it in place. There's no sagging. It's nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. So I'm really happy with that. And it took a lot of work to get all this going to start. But when you take it down and put it away and then put it back up, it's so much faster. Then on the next port coming out, sharing along this little cluster of wires, I have one of these Gilbert Engineering 100 pixel, I think it's the Snowflake P. So I've got that, and that feeds up and around, and then feeds this other P Snowflake. Again, that's 100 pixels. And I think these were like $29, $30 a piece for the prop. Then you have to buy pixels and put pixels in them. But I like these. I may get a few more of these. I'm trying to get props next year that have a little bit more definition to them and have more dense pixels, so that I can make even better effects on the house. But these are nice little snowflakes. They're 24 inches tall. Don't take up too much space. They're pretty lightweight. I could see easily lining the whole dead space above the garage right there with them. So the next thing coming out of this controller, I'm coming down with a 5-foot extension, and I'm hitting this upright here on the inside of the corner of the wall. I think there's 50 pixels on here, and it's held on like many of the other things, using these clips screwed into the mortar. It just clips right in, holds it in place, doesn't go anywhere. And then it feeds up and around, and it feeds this around my front door. I think there's 130 pixels on that. I realized after I had built this that I probably should have thought more about it, because I just started building a lot of these props and wasn't sure where I was going to feed them from or how I was going to feed them. But I'm coming out of this controller, coming down here to feed this, then I'm going up, and then instead of coming out of that up here and then coming down here to feed it, I've got the input on this side of the door. So I had to put a much longer extension that I needed to go from up there, up across the top and down, so that I could feed that. So I'm not really happy about that. I may have to end up changing that eventually, but it is what it is for now. And once again, coming out of the F16v4, going through the cable channels, up through here, through the mess of wires. I have one single cable going up through the guttering to this window up here. There's 115 pixels around that. It is anchored at the top of the window, decorative piece with those same holiday Coro clips. Just sets up there. It hasn't gone anywhere either this whole year. That was a last minute addition, and I had an empty port, so that's why I've got probably, I think I've actually got a 20-foot extension and a 15 feeding that, so it's a long way, but I didn't have any voltage drop or anything. I think I may actually put an F amp on those cords to kind of keep from the signal losing its data on the way to it. And then lastly, I believe the last thing being fed out of this, as you come down, go through the cable trough, are these Home Depot big bulbs that they came out with this year. These were also a last minute thing that I just added. I ended up just putting a small stake in the ground, zip tying the handle to them, and I mean they're pretty solid. They're not going anywhere. And I made a video on these, but I just quickly converted all these. I have two 5-foot extensions, one with the input going in, one with the input going out, and then I've got 10 pixels on each one of these bulbs off of a 3D printed pixel adapter that I had printed off, that I actually got off of the Facebook group that somebody had uploaded the STL file. So that works pretty good. I have these actually running at 40%, I think, just so that they'll shine through a little bit brighter through these bulbs. I haven't decided yet if I like it. I may end up putting more pixels in them, or even putting a floodlight in them or something, but I basically just use these as the floodlight control. When people make sequences and they have floodlights, I just sequence that aspect of the show to these bulbs, since I don't have any floodlights. Okay, I almost forgot. There is one more thing coming off the F16v4. So it goes down and feeds, goes under the mat, comes out over here, and it feeds this upright. I think I've got 50 pixels on it. It is glued onto the vinyl siding, these clips, and they hold the 1/2-inch PVC that's holding onto the Coro strip. I actually have that glued in place in 2 spots, and then it feeds up. There's a 5-foot extension, and then that 5-foot extension feeds along the guttering on the porch. There's 130 pixels up there, and that's held up by these 3D printed gutter clips. I got these off a guy on Etsy. I believe it was Filament Treasures. They're made to hold the icicles, but I've been using them just for the clips, or just for the strips that I have, and these things work fantastic. They slide right up in the gutter. They don't go anywhere, and then the 1/2-inch PVC just clips right into them. They're really sturdy. I've had 0 issues with those. So I am definitely I'll probably print my own version of them now that I have my own printer. But I was definitely planning on buying more. Originally I tried to glue those holiday Coro clips to the underside of the gutter, and it worked temporarily, but when it got hot out, the glue got soft and I started losing the strips, so I had to find another way of mounting them. And those things, I can't say enough good things about them. They're great clips. So if you're looking for something to hang off your guttering, I highly recommend these from Filament Treasures. So up here on the roof, coming from the Falcon F16v4, I have these 20-foot extensions. One of them feeds to the singing Christmas tree. It has 252 pixels. It's the Chroma Characters 4-mouth singing tree from Boscoyo Studios. And I think I paid about $60 for that. It does have a wiring diagram on the back of it. And I have a couple extra pixels here because I didn't want to splice or solder anything, so I just have them kind of hidden behind it. And I put 3/4 inch PVC conduit zip tied to both sides of it. And then I made this little frame out of 1/2 inch EMT where I've bent that, put some pipe insulation around it to kind of give it a little more grip on the roof. And it just has sandbags laying on top of it. I had to take apart the junction there and move it a little bit closer because I used the same frame for my pumpkin, and the supports were wider than these were, and I didn't want to make another frame, so I'm just reusing the same frame I had, which is why I had this junction piece on the frame, because I planned on that being an issue when the time came. And next year I hope to have a differential receiver up here so I don't have to run all these 20-foot extensions. But I have another one coming up, and it feeds the side of the house. And this one, I just have these I think they're Holiday Coro actually, but I just have those clips. They're just glued to the siding. They've been like that for several months now and they haven't gone anywhere. And then that goes and it feeds this window around the foyer. There's 135 pixels around this window. And I think there's about 40 on this edge. And this is just another frame that I made out of 1/2 inch PVC where I've zip tied everything to these Coro strips. And then up here I just have some 3D printed brackets that I've screwed into the top of this decorative piece above the window. And it just sits on there. And then to try and keep it from flapping in the wind, I've got a couple zip ties going to this vinyl siding clamp just to kind of keep it from shaking off the window too much. And for the most part that's held. I have lost a couple of these. It's come off in these windy afternoons, but for the most part it's been pretty good. Now I have another 20-foot extension coming up here, and this feeds the left edge of our guest bedroom. There's 40 pixels on it, and this one I believe, yeah, I've screwed a couple of these clips into the mortar of the brick. And it just clips right in. So I've got 2 clips on this whole 40 pixel strand. Everything's spaced 2 inches. And then that feeds one of these singing bulbs. There's 143 pixels in those. That's the 30-inch Decor Boscoyo hanging bulb. I think they come in green, red, and blue. And this, I've got bolts through the top, through the bottom. I spray painted them blue to match like I did on the red one. And then I've got a washer on the back between a piece of 1/2-inch EMT. And I've got these clamps on there that hold on to a piece of 1/2-inch PVC. And then I've got some spacers on those, and they're screwed into the mortar on the brick like everything else. And they just sit here on the brick. Hasn't gone anywhere, hasn't even turned in the wind, so I've been happy with how that's turned out. And then lastly, we have another 20-foot extension going up to our guest bedroom window. There's 128 pixels on that, and it's like everything else on a 2-inch or a 1/2-inch PVC frame on this 10mm Coro strip from Boscoyo. Everything's spaced 2 inches. You can space it 1 inch, but 2 inches is plenty for me. Just like other windows, I tried to glue the clips to these magnets and use the brick ledge to hold it, but it didn't really hold up in the long run, so I had to go through and screw another clip into the mortar of the window on this, on both sides. I just have one clip on both sides of the verticals holding it, and it's not going anywhere. And then from there, I'm feeding a 48 pixel Chroma Star flake from Boscoyo, and then that feeds another one over here. It's also 48 pixels. There's probably a 10-foot extension between those. And then there's another extension here, and it goes around and feeds this last little piece that outlined the edge of the building up here. So that's everything up on the roof. Now that we have all that done, there is another Ethernet cable that comes out of the garage from the Wi-Fi router. And it goes down along here through the cable trough, and it feeds this Kulp 32 that I have mounted on the backside of my mega tree. This box is one that I built myself. I bought all the components from Wired Watts. So it has a Kulp 32 with a beagle bone attached to the underside of it. The Ethernet comes in, feeds into the beagle bone, which then feeds 32 ports. I have 4 350 watt Meanwell 12 volt power supplies. Each power supply feeds 8 of these ports, 8, 16, 24, 32. It's also like my F16v4 and my Raspberry Pi. I have them set to a static IP address so that I can just go to it when I need to and access these components online to make sure everything's running well. This bud case came pre-drilled. All I had to do was put all these cable tail extensions in, all these waterproof glands I had to put in all myself, but the holes were already pre-drilled, which made it really nice. There was no mounting hardware with the Mega Tree, so I bought these 2-inch square C-clamps off of Amazon, along with these metal flat bars that had nice long holes in them so that I could attach it not only to the butt box but to the pole with no problem. When I got the kit, it came with these nice wire ties, so I have a heat gun that I just heated these up to shrink them to the wire. And there's, like I said, 32 ports on here. I think I'm using maybe half of them, at least for this year. And I've got these waterproof connectors. Since I have 4 power supplies, I have two power supplies wired together off of one 120 plug, and then I have the other 2 wired together off of that one. And then they both go to one of those timers over there. And this box powers not only the mega tree, but pretty much the other half of the house. So coming out of there, I'm feeding this window. It's like 138 pixels on that. And then it feeds the red singing bulb. And like the blue one upstairs, I've put 2 bolts through it. I've painted them to match the bulb. There's a couple washers on the back with a 1/2-inch EMT to a clamp that clamps to some 1/2-inch PVC, and then that clamps into those Holiday Coro clips that I have screwed into the mortar of the brick. So there's 143 pixels on that, I believe, and 138 or so on the window off that one port, no power injection. Then I have another port that comes out and it feeds this side of the house, and it goes all the way up. There's only maybe 3 or 4 clips holding that in, and I just have those drilled into the mortar on the brick as well. I don't really remember how many pixels are on that. Somewhere around 115, I think. And then that goes down, 5-foot extension, and it feeds my son's bedroom window outline. Okay, the next thing is the biggest prop in the show. It's my Mattos Designs Sasquatch Mega Tree. It's got 4 30-foot ratchet strap down guys on it. There's 4 18-inch easy anchors. They just screw right into the ground, actually pretty easily. They give you a hand wrench to screw those in the ground with when you buy it. The bottom of it has a 6-foot hoop base, and the top of it has a 32 strip mounting bracket. There's a 1,200-pound winch on here that you can use to lower and rise the mounting bracket at the top. The Mega Tree kit comes with these little bungee balls. So you just stick those through there, wrap that around, and it holds them on there pretty good. I had put these rivets on the end of these, but the strips got a little bit more slack in them as the time went on. They actually had to use an extra hole that I had above it to kind of get some of the slack out. When you get this, it comes with a wall storage kit that I haven't used yet, and it comes with 32 carabiner clamps for the top up there. This Mega Tree has 1600 pixels on it. I have 16 strands of 100 spaced at 2 inches. I'm using 8 of the ports on the Kulp 32 controller. I have 200 pixels per port for 8 ports of 200. And there's a 5-foot extension coming off of each one of those ports to the mega tree strips. So then I'm feeding one strip at the bottom, it goes up, and then that strip connects to another strip and then comes down to this bottom to get the up and down for each port 8 times. And then I have another port that I have a 20-foot extension on, and that 20-foot extension goes up the pole to the top where I have a Bosquello Chroma Star 36 6-ring star that has 270 pixels in it. I also put these 5 60-pound bags of sand on the tree, just extra support. I don't know that it really needs it, but I put it on there just to be safe. And as you can tell, my yard isn't quite level because I've got this much space here because I have it set on a 2x4, and then in the front I've actually got 2 2x4s distance between my hand and this. But this thing has survived Helene, and I haven't lowered it at all. We had some 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts the other day, and I'll add a little video in here in a minute just to show you how it reacts. In the wind, the only thing moving is the pixel strips and the down guys. The actual frame of this thing itself, it didn't budge. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 7 66-inch, 2-inch square tubing pieces that make up the frame of this. And each one has an internal square tube that these screw into, machine screwed. On both sides. They send you a bolt to put here as a stop for the topper so it doesn't come down and land on you when you're trying to lower it. And then they just slide into this plus shaped base at the bottom, and at the top it just goes straight up. In total, this tree is 20 feet tall, 17 foot tall for the frame, and then an additional 3 foot tall for the star at the top. So I'm really happy with this. I actually ordered this, probably the first thing I bought for the show. I didn't want to not have a mega tree, and last year around Christmas time when I learned about all this pixel light show stuff, my first thing that drew me to this was these mega trees, and I started looking into them, and I did one of those pre-orders that Mattos does for the next season. And I think I ordered this thing at the end of January this year, and I don't think they shipped it until it was probably the end of July. So I waited quite a while before I got this, but when I got it, I was really happy with the purchase. And even though you have to pay up for something like this, it's not going to fall over, and it's going to last a lifetime. I was afraid if I just built something with 2x4s or 4x4s and fence posts and old trampoline bases and things like that I've seen people use, that it was going to be too wobbly and cause issues, and I wanted to make sure I had something that wasn't going to fall on somebody and something that was going to last me. So definitely very happy with this. But if you were going to buy this, the kit itself, not counting the pixel strips and the pixels or the star, but basically just the down guys, the anchors, the frame, the ring at the bottom, and all the attachment pieces to attach the strips to the frame, it's going to cost you probably a little over $2,000. But in my opinion, it's well worth it. Okay, now from the Kulp 32, we got Ethernet coming out here, comes down here, feeding this Ethernet cable, and that goes down and it feeds this Falcon differential receiver. This is another box that I had built. I bought this box and all the components off of Wired Watts. It has one 350 watt 12 volt power supply, an SRX1 V4 differential receiver. Got 4 ports off of that. Right now I'm currently using 3 of the 4 with 1 open. And then I also wired in this power distribution board, and I have it set up to where I can do some power injection in the future if I need to. But as of right now, I don't need to do that. And I just have that mounted on the back of a small little frame that I made with leftover wood, going right into the ground. It's not pressure treated or anything, but it's only going to be out here a few months at a time, so I'm not worried about it. But from here, this feeds down, and it feeds these arches. We got 200 pixels on these arches, 50 pixels per arch. They're all in off of one port. And then I've got another port here that goes out, and it feeds this candy cane and this candy cane. There's 100 pixels in each candy cane. They're also from Boscoyo. They're the Boscoyo 100 pixel candy canes. They used to have 99 pixels in them, but they've updated them to 100, so that you can get 100 strand and fill it up without having to cut off the last pixel. These candy canes, I think they're around $12 a piece off of Boscoyo. So I've got 200 pixels total between these 2 candy canes coming off of that port. And then the next port, I hit this candy cane and that candy cane. And that is the 4 candy canes that come off of the differential receiver. Now I probably could have got by without using this, but I had it and I wanted to use it, so I set it out here in the yard to feed a couple things just to use it. And then I've got these 250 pixel Gilbert Engineering flat trees. I've got 5 of those, 250 pixels a piece, 200 pixels on the tree, 50 pixels on the star. All 5 of these are fed off of a single port, off of the Kulp 32. Well, a single port per prop. So I've got 10-foot extensions coming off of the tree there, going to the back side of these. And then once again, I think I've got a 20-foot extension that time coming off the port, going to feed that one. And the same with that one, that one, and that one. These 3 probably all have 20-foot extensions apiece coming off of that. And running the show at 20%, I don't have any voltage drop issues. When I made framing for these, I put 1/2-inch PVC on the back side of them, zip tied it in. That's hammered into some 1/2-inch rebar that's in the ground. And then I've got these sticks here to keep them sturdy. Just made a little T shape up here and zip tied it. And then it comes back, and just like the vertical spots, I've got some rebar pounded into the ground. The 1/2-inch PVC just slips over. So those are pretty solid. They're not going anywhere. Same with all these other props. 1/2-inch PVC, rebar pounded in the ground, slides over that. And then for these candy canes, I have them zip tied to this other piece that I already had in the ground for my tombstones. When I wired this show, I tried to keep everything pixel count wise about the same for my Halloween show as I did for my Christmas show. So when I switched this over to Christmas, all I did was unhook my 100 pixel tombstones and put 100 pixel candy canes in their place. So I didn't really have to rewire anything or do anything different with any of these ports. I built these arches somewhat along with the instructions that the Boscoyo website tells you when you buy them. They come in these 3-piece, 17 pixels per piece arch. When you buy them, they actually come as 51 pixels per prop, but I just left the last pixel empty so that I could just use a 50 pixel string. These are on 3mm Coro, so it's a lot thinner, a little flimsier than the stuff that I have around my windows and everything, but it still holds up. And when I made these, I just took a piece of 1/2-inch EMT. If I can get this out of the ground right there. Took a 1/2-inch piece of EMT, roughly 6 feet long or so. I don't remember the exact distance, but I screwed in this little T, and then I bent 1/2-inch PVC around to the other side. This is built the same way, and made a nice little frame. And then I pounded some rebar in the ground, and these things just slide right into that rebar. They wobble a little bit, but they're really sturdy and they're not going anywhere. So my only thing about these is they're awfully big, bigger than I expected, and I need to fill in this dead space in the middle of them. So I'm either going to replace these with something that has more pixels or add props to the middle of each one of them. Haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. One last thing, I wanted to show the vinyl siding hooks that I got off Amazon. They came in a little 50 pack, and I've got plenty of those left. And then this is the glue that I bought. The problem with it is you got to buy it in bulk, and I've got way more glue than I'll probably ever need. But it comes in these nice sticks. And then I bought this glue gun that has an attachment for my Milwaukee batteries so that I can use my Milwaukee battery system with it. So it's really nice. I've used it for other things around the house too, not just pixels, so it goes good for kids crafts or other random things that come up. But that is the majority of the show. And this is what it looks like in the daytime. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Everything works like it's supposed to. My biggest fear was that I would get all this money and time put into this and not be able to figure out the networking part of it and all the computer stuff, but it worked out. I'm very thankful for people who make the sequences that you can purchase, because I just didn't have time to do that myself. So hopefully next year I can look back at this and see a whole lot more pixels on the house. I hope that this helped you out, give you an idea of what this takes to put this show together, where I got things from, the cost to do things, and just kind of a rough idea of what it takes. So if you have any questions about anything or comments, maybe there's something I did that wasn't the best way to do it, or maybe you have suggestions for me, or heck, maybe you just have questions about something I forgot to mention, please comment below and let me know. Good or bad, I'm happy to see it all. So I do appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and I hope it was helpful to somebody.